In this tutorial, we're going to talk about the disc sander. Now, the disc sander is a really useful tool when you want to remove a lot of material from your wood, but you want to have full control of what the final shape will look like. Okay? So first and foremost, you want to make sure that your hair is tied back, your safety glasses are on, your watch and your jewelry and your necklaces are all off, your sleeves are rolled up, and you got the proper footwear. Okay? Like I said, the disc sander is used to remove large amounts of material. It's not useful for when you have to have a smooth finish on your material. Okay? So you wouldn't use the disc sander to produce a finished surface. If you wanted to use that, you would either use an orbital sander or just some regular hand sandpaper and a sanding block. Okay, so the disc sander uses a large motor that spins on a disc. Right, it's made out of abrasive material. This is about a 60 grit, I believe, and you want to make sure that the grit is appropriate for the task that you want to do. In this case, you probably won't have to change the abrasive on here, but it's just good to keep in mind that this abrasive is interchangeable. Alright? The guide table is what you use to rest your material when you're sanding. You'll notice that it sits as close to the disc as possible without actually touching it. You don't want anything to touch the disc sander except your material. Okay? You can actually adjust the table to different angles. If I wanted to adjust it and sand at a 90-degree angle or a 45-degree angle, I could do that. But for our purposes right now, we're just going to leave it at this perfect 90-degree angle with the disc. Okay? Now, when you are using the disc sander, you always want to stand in front of it. You never want to stand to the side of it, and you also want to make sure that no one else stands to the side of the disc. The reason being, because the disc rotates in a counterclockwise motion, you're always cutting on the left side of this disc, because you're always cutting with the downward force. That's because the disc sander is going to want to push your material down, and it pushes it down into the rest table. You never want to use the right side of the disc sander where it's rotating with an upward force. So if you were to sand on the upward rotation, the piece or the material could actually fly up and hit you or whoever's standing to the side. That's why it's always important to use only the side that is rotating downwards. Okay, you want to use the table as a rest, so when the disc spins, the disc is pushing the material down into the table. That's another reason why you don't want to freehand sanding on the disc sander. Okay, if I were to sand up here, I would not be able to keep the material steady enough. It would just force itself into the table. So it's always a good idea to keep your material on the table, rested, use that as a support. Now you can use as much as the left side as you want. Actually, it's best to use as much as possible. So when I'm sanding, I want to utilize all of the abrasive on the left side. So I'll move my piece back and forth, as opposed to just using the edge or using only the center. There's two advantages to that. For one, you're going to evenly wear out the abrasive. If I only sand it on the edge of the disc, I'll wear out the edge way before I wear out the middle, which you can actually see the edge is already. So you can see that the edge is already worn out compared to the middle. That's because students in the past have used the outside way more than they should use the inside. So you want to rotate it, move it back and forth from side to side, so you're utilizing all of the abrasive. Okay. The second thing that it does is that it prevents overheating and burning of your material. If I were to just press it into one side or one area of the disc sander, a lot of friction is going to occur, a lot of heat is going to build up, which could actually cause your material to burn. So by moving it back and forth, you're reducing that heat buildup, you're reducing that friction. Okay, and also you want to remember that a lot of pressure isn't required when you're using the disc sander. It's a very powerful machine. You let the machine do the work. You don't want to force your material in there because you could either tear the abrasive, you can burn your wood, ruin your material, or burn a hole right through the sandpaper. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start sanding just to show you what it's like. As you can see, I used as much of the disc sander as I could that was on the left side. I didn't use any of the right side, and I tried to keep my fingers at least 4 inches away from the moving disc at all times. Now, whenever you're done with the machine, you want to make sure that you stay here until the blade has completely stopped moving, or the disc has completely stopped moving.